Good evening and welcome to City of Pasco Workshop Meeting. The council thanks you for being part of the city government. At meetings, the city council takes formal action on items, holds public hearings, and conducts other business of the city. Agenda packets can be found at the City of Pasco's website at www.pasco-wat.gov/agenda. This meeting is being televised live on PSC TV channel 191 on Spectrum Cable in Pasco and Richland, and is streamed in the city's Facebook page, website, YouTube channel, and GoToWebinar. This and previous council meeting video is available on the city's website. Lastly, the public may submit their comments and/or questions by contacting the city manager, city clerk, or by using the Ask Pasco app. And with that, can I get roll call, please?
Members Brown,
Present.
Campos,
Present.
Milne,
Here.
Roach,
Present.
Serrano,
Here.
and Mayor Pro Tem Maloney,
Present.
and Mayor Barajas.
Present.
Thank
And with
you.
that, would you please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And now we're going to go on to our next item on the agenda, verbal reports from council members. Any activities, events, ribbon cuttings, anything you may have attended that you wish to share with the rest of council. Councilman Serrano.
I did attend a Hanford Area Economic Investment Fund Committee. It's an organization that we've talked about, or I've talked about quite a bit, that lends money to public and private interests to diversify from the Hanford economic situation here. Collected from waste funds from Hanford. Unfortunately, right now we're kind of tied up and not lending a whole lot of money right now, quite frankly, due to some litigation that's ongoing. That's quite unfortunate. But on a bright note, maybe not such a bright note, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Milne on his daughter's departure for the Marine Corps. You know, there's something to be said about a man who raises two daughters who both go into the service. Either he's one heck of a disciplinarian and it's easier life in the Marine and in the Air Force, or he's done a great job teaching them principles, love of country and sacrifice of self. And my guess is it's somewhere in between the middle, but leaning harder on that latter side. So I know as painful as it is for you to let him fly, figuratively and literally, you know, I congratulate you. And as a friend, proud to see your daughters go and serve our country. So I'll cut it off there before you get emotional.
I do appreciate it. Yeah, it's been extremely hard to even think about it. So, but thank you.
Sorry, Dave.
Thank you. Councilman Serrano. I'm sorry,
that's me,
Campos.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not as good looking, but thank you for the comment. Just real quick, I know this council's made comments before, and especially on like our public transportation about accessibility. And I just wanted to make mention that this upcoming week, I think October 2nd through the 6th, there's an initiative that's taking place asking those of us who are more able-bodied to use public transportation. And since I serve on the BFT board, I figured it would be an appropriate time to talk about in this item. I know for a lot of us it's not necessarily feasible, but just ask yourself the question, if there's something that you could utilize public transportation for any of your day-to-day activities, make it worth your while to give it a shot. Especially as policymakers, you can contribute to improving our public transportation and just potentially looking at improving accessibility for those of us who are a little bit less fortunate. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. What were the dates?
October 2nd through the 6th, I believe, is when the week without driving is. And I can send this to Mrs. Barham, and maybe she could get it out to the rest of staff or council.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything else to share? I actually have something brief to share. I was a last minute invite on Saturday for the LULAC Caporales Council was established. I did send in some pictures, not sure if they're available to share. What it is really is a group of farmers ranchers, cowboys gathered and they decided to form a council. This is the first ever council formed by cowboys or men that work with horses and compete. So in Spanish, it's caporales. And so I was honored to be present for their confirming of their council and pinning of the council members. It was very fun, great people, fun people. Did not ride a horse, but it was definitely there available. The other thing too, just this evening, earlier today actually, I was invited to speak to the Pasco High School soccer team about perseverance, resilience, and pushing forward as a team. And so they honored me with and I forgot to bring it, a high school team T-shirt, which they all signed. So huge honor. The girls are excellent and they work hard. And so they have a big game coming tomorrow. Not sure if anyone follows the high school soccer, but they are playing against Chiawana High School. So you guys are all invited to come and watch the game. And that's all I have to share. Anyone else have anything else to share? Seeing no one else, I'll move on with the agenda. We'll move into our items for discussion. 5A, update on the Eastern Washington Phase 2 Municipal Stormwater Permit Reissuance. Director Worley.
Madam Mayor, members of council, good evening. Council may recall a while back when there was a presentation previously given on stormwater information. A request was made to kind of get a little more information as things change on the stormwater arena. And so that's what tonight is about. We're going to give you an update on some of the changes that are happening related to the stormwater permit. And the idea here is to keep you informed as we move along throughout the year rather than trying to come to you at a time to make a decision and dumping you with a whole bunch of information at that time. So tonight we're going to have a presentation by our environmental compliance coordinator, Michael Hanau.
Did you pronounce Maria Serra? Just kidding. Sorry, Michael. No disrespect. You're just not a frequent flyer.
But welcome.
For having me. All right, so as mentioned earlier, so I'm just trying to give a quick update on the upcoming permit with our stormwater permit. So just a quick overview on like the background of the permit. So the first MPDS permit that was released, like the phase 2 type of permit, it was released by EPA in 1999. And the state of Washington released the first phase 2 permit in 2007. And that was mainly for cities and counties that were located in the west side of the state. Then in 2014, the first permit was released for cities and counties in Eastern Washington. At that time, 22 cities and 7 counties received phase 2 permits. And then from there on, every 4 years, we get a new permit. Currently, we are on the 2019-2024 cycle, and the upcoming permit is going to be for 2024 and 2029. So it's just a quick background on the Clean Water Act. So a lot of these permits are based on the idea to protect our bodies of water. So following the Clean Water Act is the Drinking Water Act. So here are the first things that started. So we knew the new permit was going to start back in 2021. So at the beginning of 2022, the Eastern Washington work group created a ad hoc group. The group was 15 cities. We got together and we talked about some of the things that the current permit could improve. So we talked about some of the parameters that we need to cover in the permit. One of them was performance effectiveness studies, and that's when each city has to develop a study to find new technologies to create BMPs of best practices in stormwater. And we have some comments on that item. Then after that, we talked about education and outreach, and that's the topic that the city of Pasco led. And then pretty much we wanted to get more support from the state and educational materials since we're not educators. Then after that, we made some comments on the scope. We're trying to have ecology define the difference between MS4 and UICs. UICs are underground injection controls. And the idea is that we want to make sure that ecology is going to be able to determine, okay, this is an MS4 body and this is a UIC body. And then that's all related with the permit. Then we also created a white paper on the procedures to be in compliance with the stormwater permit. They have some interesting requirements in the permit that we did not agree with, and then we wanted ecology to understand our limitations as cities, as most of Eastern Washington cities are smaller cities. Oh. Then ecology received the white papers. There were really no comments. And at that point, we were just waiting for the first release of get a sneak peek of the permit coming up. So at the end of 2022, ecology released a few pages of the upcoming permit. And at that point, we made some unofficial comments to the Department of Ecology. One of them was tree retention. Some of the documents that they released that were talking about creating plans to, and creating goals to retain trees along the city and all over different parts of the city. We make an argument that that will be fairly difficult for cities that are located in Eastern Washington, so since we are short step, and we also trying to conserve water. So having more trees is going to be difficult for a city to continue to do. And then after that, they had some comments on street sweeping. They wanted to increase street sweeping, so we made comments about there's going to cost related to that. There's a staff issue relating to that. So we made all those comments. To make sure ecology understood that what they were asking was going to be fairly difficult to manage. Then we also made comments on PCB's education and outreach. Some of the documents that they released, they talked about PCB plans and PCB management. And we believe that the best first step that we need to take first is education and outreach. And after that, we can go into developing plans. We didn't agree with what they were asking at that point. So we're hoping that some of the comments that we sent to them and some of the white papers were going to be taken into account when they release the first draft of the permit. Then that takes us to now. So about a month ago, Ecology released the first draft of the permit, and they did listen to some items that we had. The tree retention part, they did not create any goals for the cities to maintain a specific percentage of trees. But what they did ask is for the cities to evaluate how many trees they had. So we still created additional comments on that because we wanted to be specific on what kind of areas do they want us to survey to be able to document which trees we have in the city and what are their goals and expectations and what are their plans to do with that data? Because you're not asking for data for any specific reason. And then we also have some PFAS management plans comments. We know that they're trying to reduce the impact of PFAS on stormwater. Our stormwater goes into the river, a large percentage of it. And the idea is that they were asking that every city needs to work with the fire department to create PFAS management plans. And we understand the point, but we also understand that fire departments are not using PFAS in the city. So we're asking for them to take exemptions to cities that already have that in place. So there's some of the comments that we are planning to make to to the Department of Ecology. As I mentioned before, the tree canopy assessment was one of them. PCB management in buildings, washdown, that's another big item that we're planning to create some comments on. They're requiring that the city has to create PCB management and assessments for every building that the city owns. So we're talking about large buildings, we're talking about bathrooms and parks, and that seems fairly difficult to accomplish. So we are fairly strong to our comments, and these comments are going to come from all the cities that are part of the Eastern Washington Work Group. So we're talking about currently, we are a group of 13 cities. And our goal is to be able to submit all these comments to Ecology by November 10th. So we already had 3 different meetings with our work group, and we're getting fairly close to finish the white papers with our comments. So what is Ecology doing to inform the public and educate everybody else on their upcoming permit? So first, they're going to have virtual hearings. They have one November 6th at 1:30. We have a QR code there, and then if you click it there, you're going to be able to sign up for the meeting, and you'll have access to the full meeting. And they're also going to have an in-person hearing on October 3rd, and that meeting is going to be held at Moses Lake Civic Center. The meeting will be at 9:30 a.m. The city of Pasco will be participating in the virtual hearings and in-person hearings. Questions?
Thank you for your presentation. Questions? Do we have, Councilman Serrano first?
Yeah, I noticed I'm not gonna try to call out the subsection, I think it's somewhere in S5, subsection B. It's on page 29. It addresses discharges from lawn watering, other irrigation runoff, and then the following one addresses discharges from swimming pools. And I know we've talked about this. It seems that kicks it down into a compliance mechanism that's a locally adopted ordinance. Is that correct?
Correct. And then currently, our ordinance address some of those discharges as illicit discharges.
Okay. And so as an illicit discharge for me and for the members of the public, what exactly does that mean? Is that quasi-permitted or?
So pretty much, if you need to discharge water from your pool, there's different goals that you need to meet. One of them is that you have to make sure your water is dechlorinated. And as we talked before, there's different chemicals that you can apply to your pool to dechlorinate the water. So you want to achieve a less than 0.1 milligrams per liter of chlorine, and at that point you can discharge the water into a street, and eventually it goes into the stormwater system.
Okay. Now, is that no different between above ground and in-ground pools?
There's no difference.
Okay. And then as to the discharges from lawn watering, because I mean, I'm sure I'm guilty of it, or my sprinkler doesn't hit right, what is to be done to cure that?
So that's a difficult one. I think every city struggles to manage that item. As you mentioned, it's just, you're 10 degrees to the south of your sprinkler and you're going to have water in your sidewalk and it's going to go into the street. So that's something that here in the city, we just try to educate the public. So anytime somebody calls, we go over there and just talk to them.
Okay.
So in that approach, we just take education.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I think as we continue to work through the permit, just continually informing us of that status would be helpful. Again, I think it's scary to the public. Personally, I don't like it, and I know last time it was a sticking point for me in voting in support. I appreciate the work you're doing. I want to be clear about that. But I do think especially when a state agency tries to usurp local regulatory authority, it's problematic. When they're either coming from even Richland, one of the closest ecology sites, to Pasco to tell us what to do, or worse yet, Olympia. And again, please don't take this as a knock. I appreciate the work you're doing, but our job is to make sure that the people of Pasco are protected. And I know that's what you're trying to do. I have serious heartburn when ecology has this gross overreach. So, and again, I appreciate the advocacy. Please don't take it as a knock.
Not at all. And then, so ecology has also, they're aware of some of the burden that they put on smaller cities in any city in the eastern Washington. And so they created something called a capacity grant. So we get a biannual grant of $50,000 and they just increase it to $130,000. So we just finished the application process for that grant and we'll most likely get that grant.
And what would that allow us to achieve?
But that grant is designed to support the permit. So any regulations, any mandates that are in the permit, you have that money to support.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments? Mayor Pro Tem Maloney?
Thank you. I'll strongly echo my fellow council members' comments on this. I'm deeply concerned about this, especially when you look at some of our older houses. I know I brought this up the last time. Pools that are literally hard piped to discharge to the storm sewer. But it's not just chlorine levels. It was also dissolved solids and there was a whole litany of things which are very hard to manage as a private homeowner. Temperature was one of the other ones. I mean, it's the litany of things was pretty strong. And as I recall, this also, our last permit, again, disallowed people to wash their cars in their driveway and have the discharge from soapy water go into the stormwater. So when we're talking about overreach, it's everything that Councilmember Serrano said and then a lot more. So I really struggle with this. I struggled with it before, and I for the life of me cannot figure out what what ecology thinks that they're doing to communities with this, especially ones with established neighborhoods, established areas where this isn't just so simple as, oh, you just, throw some chemicals in a pool. That's not enough. There's actually way more than that that's being requested out of ecology. And again, I can't emphasize enough, not being able to wash our cars in our driveway seems like a gross injustice. I'll just leave it there. I don't have anything better to do with that. I'm just mad. So
Yeah,
I'll
and
just,
then-
I'll just leave it at mad. So no response required. I'm just mad. And so you've heard that I'm mad, and everyone's heard I'm mad. So
a lot of the members in the Eastern Washington Stormwater Group, we all have similar views. And there was, in this part that ecology actually heard us, and they were proposing different limitations and inspections for source control. And that was something that was not put in the permit. We were fairly strong about our opinion when we talked to ecology that was unfair. So that was nowhere to be seen in this permit. So we were fairly happy that they took the time to listen to us in that aspect. To pretty much say ease a little bit, yeah. We have to celebrate every little win.
Thank you.
And then the only other comment I have is I was actually concerned and surprised by our pushback on retaining tree canopy, because we've invested in our own nursery for trees in our own city, and so when we're talking about how we maintain our urban forest, we've been strongly supportive of that and helped fund that. So I was really shocked to see that we were pushing back against any retention of canopy. Now I appreciate the concept of it doesn't have to be in the permit for us to do it, right? And we may be doing the right things anyways. But I was surprised to see a disconnect between those, at least a perceived disconnect. And the data is very clear how much a tree canopy protects and enhances a city. I mean, it literally decreases temperatures in a city. So when you see canopies, old growth canopies, especially in older parts of cities, decline, as is happening in Pasco today, you see increases in temperatures by you can actually measure it. They have aerial maps where you can see where canopy's been cut down simply by the radiative temperature off of the environment. But which is of course linked to energy usage. It's linked to crime, and it's linked to property values. So I was shocked to see that our Public Works Department is seeming to take a stance against retaining trees, and so I hope you can help explain that a little more.
Sure,
what that means.
absolutely. So our first thing is that we wanted to understand what was the main goal of ecology. Do they want us to increase tree canopy by 10%, 5%, or maintain it? That's something that was not explained, and we wanted to see a better definition of what their plans were going to be with the data they're going to be collecting or asking of us. The second step is that they're talking about having different canopy goals all over the city. Well, they need to define what the city or city property is. Are we talking about every easement? Are we talking about right-of-ways? Are we talking about parks? And that's something that we want to see them explain to us, because we don't want to get to a point that we're being asked that every 4 years we need to increase tree canopy by 10, 20, 40%, because those goals will be very difficult to meet. So it's better when the city determines those goals on themselves.
I appreciate the clarification of it's better to not have something permitted if you don't have to have it permitted, especially if it's vaguely and broadly applied. But I guess I'll stay on that rant too. Apparently I'm in a ranty mood today, so thank you.
Any other questions or comments? My questions were actually answered. I had why the trees, the canopy, and you mentioned something about plants as well. Certain types of plants would not be allowed. Did I understand that
No,
incorrectly?
I didn't mention it.
Okay. And as far as the outreach and education that I had on my list here, you mentioned that too. It was already asked. I don't have any further questions or comments. I think I agree with both council members. It's a little frustrating, to say the least. I don't have any further comments on this, other than we'll wait and see what you bring back.
Yeah, and again, just want to make sure that everybody knows that the Eastern Washington Work Group, we're all looking out for the benefit of Eastern Washington. We understand our community, we understand our weather, and we are doing our best to make our point to make sure we get a fair permit.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Great. So with no other comments or questions, thank you again, Michael, for your presentation and for hearing our rants. We'll move on to our next item on the agenda, item 5B, Resolution Basin Disposal Incorporated 2024 Proposed Rates Increase. And again, Director Worley.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor, members of council. This is a normal annual thing that we do each year. And so this year we are bringing to you a proposal from BDI relative to the annual rate increase. And as council may recall, the rate is based on two different items. The first one is the rate increase for BDI for the collection of all of the solid waste throughout the city, and the second one, and then the tipping fee for getting rid of the garbage once it's collected. And so between the two of them, the increases, it works out to about a, 3.64% increase in total fee. And as council has done in previous years, each year that I've been here, they have a subcommittee of 3 council members that get together and possibly review these increases, ask questions, and get more information from BDI as necessary. Didn't know if council wanted to continue that again this year. If you thought it was necessary, we can certainly do that before we bring this item back to council for action. So open to
Councilmembers?
questions, comments, and decisions on which direction to go.
Thank you again, Director Worley. I know we've met previously on the increases and the impacts to certain demographics within our city. So council members, do we continue meeting and discussing? I'm not exactly sure who was part of the,
I participated in the subcommittee in the past,
okay.
and I'll be happy to do it again if it happens in the next couple months.
Yes, we would like to get the fee increase approved with enough time for BDI to get the notices out soon enough before the beginning of the year. There's a requirement that they have to get 2 notices out before they start collecting the fee, and they'd like to be able to collect the fee starting January 1st.
I think we'll move forward with the work group. Did you have a comment, Councilman Strong?
Is there a particular timing, like an interval on those? So you said 2 notices, is it they have to stack them 2 weeks apart, or, obviously time is of the essence. I just want to understand.
Right.
What's the essence? Is it they send one out and 38 days later, or do you know?
I think, I don't remember what the requirement is, but I think they typically like to put them in each month's bills that go out, and they put a little notice in it notifying them that that's when the fees are going to increase.
45 days is the statutory requirement. So I think both notices have to be, at least one, but maybe, I think both have to be out 45 days before the increase goes into effect. So that would be mid-November. They would need to get their notices out. So we'd have October, but that's about it.
Okay, just again looking at the timing. Thanks.
You betcha.
Okay, so again, an invite to council members, and it's 3, I believe, right?
Had in the past, yes.
Councilwoman Roach, myself, and is there any other council member that would like to join and give your input? Councilman Brown. Thank you. Thank you for speaking up.
All right, thank you. We'll get a schedule set up and try to do this as quick as possible. And then we'll bring this back we'll bring any additional information back that we get from working with the subcommittee, and then come back to council for final approval.
Worley, can I request that the option of remote or virtual attendance be possible? Got
Absolutely.
some work travel this month, so, thanks.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Thank you, Director Worley, and we'll move on to next item on the agenda, 5C, Planning for Housing and Transportation, and for this, we have Director Gonzalez.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. This is a follow-up presentation from one that occurred in the spring of this year. primarily to provide council with an update on various efforts staff and the department are working on to address both housing and transportation efforts within the community. A brief overview will cover the housing action plan and where that's at. A brief overview of the state legislation regarding numerous housing bills, and on the transportation side, talk a little bit about how staff is currently reviewing developments with regards to transportation impacts, and a brief note about the pending street connectivity effort. So next slide. So the Housing Action Plan is an effort that staff's been working on for well over a year. We were one of only a handful of communities east of the Cascades to both apply for and work on a housing action plan. And generally, the plan is intended to be a document that we use to identify what strategies we can implement in the short and the long term to address the affordability challenges that numerous residents are facing today and certainly will face in the future with the ongoing growth in the region. Next slide. And this graphic is intended to kind of illustrate how the plan works and how it kind of nests within all of the other work we do. So the Housing Action Plan will be sort of a supplement, a comprehensive supplement to our current comprehensive plan that was adopted a couple of years ago. However, because of the recent data collection and policy recommendations, et cetera, it'll really give us a boost when we begin to make progress on our next iteration of the periodic update of the comp plan, which is due in June of 2026. So essentially, the development of the plan now will feed that next plan and then result in several implementation strategies, which we have a draft, and show that to you this evening. Next slide. So wanted to talk a little bit about just housing needs in general, both in population and in terms of overall housing need growth. And what the chart on the screen illustrates is that Pasco will continue to be one of the fastest growing cities, likely in the Pacific Northwest. We will, today, that's a 2020 number, but today Pasco is home to roughly 82,000 residents. And by the year 2045 or so, we'll be home to over 145,000 residents. So this forecast already exceeds the growth rate that we use for our current comprehensive plan. And on the next slide, we've worked with a team of consultants and the Washington State Department of Commerce to identify the housing targets based on the income of residents. And one thing that I wanted to point out is the Department of Commerce has already identified that Pasco right now is got a housing undersupply of roughly 1,500 units. So we are today currently short approximately 1,500 homes. That is included in the roughly 24,000 housing units that we will need to accommodate that expected population growth by the year 2045. I think what's really interesting about Pasco's particular housing needs assessment is that a significant portion of the units that we will need over the several decades is actually for households earning 80% or more of the area median income. Typically, what we see across the country is needing a lot more housing for folks at the lower end of the income level, and we certainly need that. We're under supply right now. But in Pasco's case, we need that, but what we really need help on are housing for folks that are working at our school districts, at our service facilities, here at City Hall, in various sectors across the community. So I think that's something that is seen represented in the details of the draft recommendations of the housing plan. Next slide.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Sure.
Can you actually go backwards one? One more. So this is provided by OFM and whatever Eco Northwest calculations is. I just mentioned to your colleague local control and a need for that. Couldn't we theoretically slow the growth if we decided that's what we wanted to, rather than just abiding by these projections? Are we bound to these?
We are bound by the Growth Management Act requires us to plan for the population projection, and that requires us to look at our entire ecosystem beyond housing and land uses, but looking at utilities, infrastructure in our comprehensive plan process. We will have a more refined version of this as we develop our comprehensive plan in coordination with Franklin County. The state law requires the counties to tell the cities the percent of population that each jurisdiction within the county is expected to accommodate. And that's usually a back and forth discussion with the county. And typically we've comprised of roughly 80% of Franklin County's overall population, but that number has increased over the years just due to the rapid increase of Pasco's population relative to the decrease of some of the rural communities in our county. We can adopt our own forecast, but that would need to be vetted by the Department of Commerce.
Okay, so do they have an actual approval authority on this through Growth Management Act or another process? Or when you say vetted, is it a true approval authority? We just kick over projections, have the discussion, and then
At a high level, we would need to work with Franklin County, identify why we are deviating from the official forecast, and then document that. And we haven't done that before, so that'd be to be determined.
Okay, I appreciate that. I like the term you use, ecosystem. When I look at those numbers, we certainly don't have the true ecosystem to support 200,000, well, 145,000 people. Now, can we build it over the next 22 years? Possibly. But I think we're going to see a lot of iterations of Road 68 throughout Pasco if we're not intentionally planning and spending money that we possibly don't have in some situations. So I'd like to see us in those dialogues potentially push back, where especially we know utilities and other issues that we don't have or have the budget for. And it's another conversation for another day. But I just think accepting this, again, it's another bite at local control. And it's another opportunity for us to either accept what we get from Olympia or push back and say, you know what, we really don't have the capacity for this. And to do so is going to cost us X billions with a B dollars, which is what it will over the next 20 years. So I want to express that now before we get too far down the road as we plan, as we look at things. If there's a way for us to push back and look at where the right growth in Pasco is and what our sweet spot is, and a truly planned ecosystem around those housing and those individuals, I think there's a little bit more measuredness to this than that.
As part of the Housing Action Plan effort, city staff has been working with a really, I think, awesome group of community stakeholders in the housing arena throughout the past year or so. The screen illustrates several of the partners and organizations, private, nonprofit, advocacy organizations, public partner agencies, et cetera, that have been a part of this process. And they've really been a driving input force as part of developing the draft recommended strategies. What it's allowed us to do is sort of reality check not only the numbers, but certainly the recommendations to make sure that they're reliable, they're practical, and they make sense. And in some cases, they're actually achievable within the near and long-term planning horizon. But really appreciate working with this group. We do have a fourth stakeholder workshop scheduled to review the draft document later in October. And while we've worked with a formal community stakeholder group, we've certainly have heard comments and input from members of the community themselves. So with the help of our communications team, we had a very successful survey associated with the Housing Action Plan. And a few of the bullet points here I wanted to call out were that 34% of the respondents indicated that the cost of rent or home prices are a barrier to their housing needs. 60% agree that Pasco would benefit from more housing options. And this was an interesting question, which asked respondents if they felt comfortable to tell us previous homes that they've resided in, housing types they've resided in. And 72% indicated that they've lived in an apartment. 5% had indicated they've had to rely on temporary housing. And even 4% had shared that they've lived in an accessory dwelling unit before, which is interesting when we contrast that with the actual current living arrangements for the respondents. So 93% of the residents that responded to our survey live in a single-family home, and 86% currently own. So that kind of demonstrates in some ways the challenge we often face with accommodating more housing options and sort of working around the community interests and community needs, and sometimes community fears about what new development and new growth means for the community. Next slide. So the Housing Action Plan, again, is set to be a document that identifies recommended strategies for us to move forward with. These were approved and these were recommended by the Planning Commission in August, and this will soon be a formal presentation of the council in the next month or so. But the 5 recommendations are to remove regulatory barriers and encourage the development of a variety of housing types, increase opportunities for home ownership, expand the supply and increase access to affordable housing, build housing for Pasco special population groups, and mitigate the displacement of vulnerable residents. With that, I wanted to end the housing discussion with a snippet of some of the housing bills that were adopted by the state legislature this past year. The first one is House Bill 11110, that's commonly known as a missing middle housing bill. There are several requirements associated with this bill. However, Pasco is in the unique circumstance where we've effectively already adopted the changes necessary to implement that bill without having to adopt the eventual state zoning code. I do want to share that the city of Pasco is one of a handful of cities in the state that have been hand selected by the Washington State Department of Commerce to develop that zoning code. So Pasco, we are participating in those discussions, and our input will eventually be part of the model zoning code for the state of Washington, which is great to ensure that local context is a part of that process. Another one was accessory dwelling units. We do need to make a few minor changes to our current ADU rules to fully comply with that bill. House Bill 1293 regarding clear and objective design standards. That really is a bill aimed at ensuring that the development review process with regards to the standards we have in place for zoning are based on clear and objective standards. So you may recall the presentation provided to council a couple of weeks ago regarding the residential design standard. This will put us in compliance with that. And the last one is Senate Bill 5290, which is a bill aimed at permitting the review streamlining the permitting review process, having specific timelines associated with when a decision needs to be made by a hearing examiner or planning commission or council based on the application type. Happy to say that Pasco typically isn't in non-compliance with the current state law regarding this. This bill was likely aimed at some of the larger municipalities in the state that are taking 1, 2, 3, 4 years for projects to be approved. Pasco, along with our regional partners across the river in Benton County, are typically well below that threshold, but we will do what we can to ensure that our PMC reflects any necessary changes associated with that bill. So now I wanted to touch a little bit on the transportation efforts. This is an ongoing sort of evolvement of how we've evaluated, review, and then assess mitigations, particular mitigations related to development based on the applications, the number of units, the location, et cetera. And there's 3 primary areas that staff's really been emphasizing over the last 24 to 36 months. And those are accessibility and safety, ensuring safe travel options for our residents, level of service and concurrency. So that's the ensuring that the infrastructure development aligns seamlessly with the developments that are taking place. And then traffic impact analysis, fees, and contributions. So that's ensuring that growth is paying for growth. I do want to share that we are working with several very large projects, both public projects and residential and commercial projects along the Road 68 corridor itself. And while we're doing the best we can at the staff level to keep those projects moving forward, one of the biggest barriers that those projects have in getting to a final approval is ensuring that the impacts to the system aren't detrimental. And so there's a high cost associated with mitigating those projects. The combination of all of those has resulted in forecasts that indicate that several intersections would be failing without mitigations. And so I think what the intent of mentioning this in particular was that staff is looking at all of these projects carefully to ensure that the mitigations are in place up front. One, that helps the developer and the applicant know what the costs are of their project, but 2, it leads to a more streamlined review process in front of the hearing examiner.
So do those mitigations include traffic revision, whether it's outbuild of road or diversion tactics?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They do.
All right, I appreciate that. That way we can alleviate some of that issue that already exists, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Lastly, wanted to touch on the pending street connectivity effort. And this is a slide that's been shown to council several times over the past couple of years, really. And what staff's been doing over the past several months is reevaluating how we can achieve the objective, the goal of the code amendment without, I think, by different measures, by different recommendations. So in general, the idea behind it was to increase access, increase the efficiency of the transportation system, increase mobility and multimodal options, and certainly with an eye towards safety. And there's certainly a long litany of benefits, both in research, best practice, planning, transportation, et cetera, that staff shared with the Council and Planning Commission over the past several years. And it's certainly important for us to recognize that there are potential for new regulations and new costs and what that may mean for housing in particular. So what staff is currently working on right now is kind of taking a few steps back and really looking at what we were trying to achieve with this proposal based on established council goals, the adopted transportation system master plan, and best practice, and certainly meeting the needs of our community members. One of the questions in the housing survey was asking residents how they prioritize their next home choice. And 50% of the responses indicated that they look at safe streets for walking and biking and accessibility. And so what staff is looking at right now is evaluating if there's an opportunity for us to achieve connectivity by decreasing the public right-of-way needs. So not every right-of-way needs to be a 60-foot street, not every right-of-way needs to be an 80-foot arterial, et cetera. We think we may be able to achieve the intent of this recommendation by maybe keeping the same amount of streets, decreasing where we can, but increasing the non-motorized connections around the city if we can ensure that those connections are made at practical intervals so that you know when to look for the next connection. So we're still working on that. I do want to share that we gave a similar presentation to the Home Builders Association of the Tri-Cities a couple of weeks ago. We look forward to continue to collaborate and work with all of our stakeholders, including the home builders. But really just wanted to provide council with an update of where we're at today. We'll come back in the next couple of weeks with a full update on both the Housing Action Plan and the residential design standards, and hope to be back before the end of the year with a revised recommendation on the street connectivity effort. So with that, conclude the presentation and happy to answer any questions I can this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gonzalez. Do we have any questions? Councilwoman Roach?
Mostly just comments that I wanted to make, and I feel like the number one, the engagement on survey is really great to have. I know that I took it and like to be asked those questions, to be given those opportunities to say what I do prioritize in buying another house, and how do I use multimodal connectivity from place to place in Pasco. So thank you for incorporating that in this. One of the things that I think sticks out to me is that even as Pasco's gone through growing pains of being this little rural community to kind of a suburban community, and 68 happened, years ago in the 90s, and that really started with the track. We went through those growing pains, but what I've seen the staff do from Public Works and Planning is incorporate those traffic mitigation. I mean, the traffic used to be horrible there. I live not too far from there. That is the economic center that I travel to grocery shop, to go to the library, to take my kids for ice cream, baseball games, all of it, you name it. And I've seen it start to take effect in that it is alleviating those traffic passageways, getting to the highway, getting onto 68. Not that it's perfect, right? And it's never going to be perfect, but I think it's working. We don't have people, Chief Roski, darting through that intersection at 68 and Burden like we used to, and causing accidents. So I want to give that compliment here because I think that it's important. I think the planning efforts of creating things like Sandifer and Burden, where you see people using that multimodal, running, jogging, catching the bus, all of that, and it has a more community feel in the planning efforts, and I really appreciate that. And so as far as the housing goes, I feel like from a instinctive and observational perspective, what the data is showing matches what at least I hear as a council member. Not enough rental options, not enough housing for those who are in the lower income bracket. And I feel like that's really great for me to see that matches the comments that are being made. So now it's more of like, what do we do about it? So thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councilwoman Roach. Are there any other comments? Mayor Pro Tem Maloney?
Thank you, Mayor Barajas, and thank you, Director Gonzalez, for all your hard work that goes on behind the scenes. I've been able to, I think, be privy to it more than most, into the weeds of what you're trying to accomplish and why. And I really appreciate all the hard work that goes into it and all the thought and how multifaceted this all is when you're talking about how to lay out development patterns, how that interacts with our public works projects, but also with our fire and police. I think about this a lot, and I was shocked, absolutely shocked to see that our numbers and growth rate has been revised upwards from looking at a growth of something like projected growth of like 52,000 over 20 years to now like so substantially 80 something thousand or whatever it was. I mean, just feels like a ludicrous number to be considering our little town to be growing. And of course, that's on top of that's in conjunction with the growth across the entire Tri-Cities. We're not just doing this on an island. So that was eye-opening and a little disheartening at the same time. In terms of Councilmember Serrano's comments about do we have to grow this fast? I think about that a lot as well, because my district doesn't grow. My district is very mature. There's not a lot of infill in my district boundaries. We are kind of who we are, and my district will change, but the population that lives in my current district is not really going to change very substantially. A little bit of infill, but not near to accommodate sort of percentages at that. And so whenever we look at where do we pay for with our existing homeowners who are paying for infrastructure that they're never going to use, paying for fire stations they're not going to use and such. Not saying that we shouldn't all and that we're not all in this together. Of course we are. But that premise of growth paying for growth, I mean, what we've seen very clearly is how do you slow down growth? You increase impact fees so that a new development pays for its infrastructure. That is really the only way. And in fact, we've seen that in Pasco's history. Not massive change, not massive slowdown, but when we had these school impact fees were first implemented, there was we'll say pause in residential development in Pasco. So if we want to talk about slowing down growth, I mean, really the key is to make sure that new growth, especially in targeted, thoughtful ways, is paying for all of its infrastructure. That's roads, but that's also water infrastructure. That's fire stations. That's satellite police stations. That's police officers potentially. I mean, we're talking about trying to make sure that if we don't want to tap into the property tax dollars and sales tax dollars from our existing residents to pay for residents who do not live here right now, we have to be very thoughtful as how we implement those. So I'm looking forward to seeing what, Jacob, what you come up with and make sure that we are truly making growth pay for growth so that our current residents and current voters aren't the ones on footing a majority of the bill to build that development of people who don't live here and did not vote for any of us. The other thing is, the only other way I can think of that we can grow without dramatically increasing our infrastructure costs is through better utilization of our existing infrastructure. And what that requires is this council needs to make sure that we approve and encourage higher density developments in our existing boundaries. Every time we vote to not allow an upzone, we're sending a signal out to the community that we don't want to have that additional growth. We don't want to make housing more affordable, and we don't want to use our existing infrastructure better. Many of those projects don't require a massive increase in infrastructure, but we need to be very thoughtful about making sure that this council approves those higher densities and those infills. Otherwise, we're shooting ourselves in the foot for all of our own goals, let alone future goals as might be dictated. Because I just cannot emphasize this enough, and I'm not sure. I know for a fact that the community does not understand this, and so I'll just say it. I'll say it briefly, but understand there's a whole lot of research and work that went into this. Low density single family housing does not pay enough property taxes to cover the infrastructure they use. As a statement, full stop. So every time we build low density single family houses, we are building roads that entire community is going to have to pay additional for to supplement that single family house. For roads, for water, sewer, all of it. because we have to pay for the workers to cover that. It's all about lineal feet. So the more densely we develop in certain areas, make sure we're targeting that, the lower our infrastructure costs are, the less we have to pay in taxes, and the less impact fees we'll have to have ultimately. So again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have low-density single-family housing as options. Of course we should. But we have to understand that those have a larger impact on our infrastructure and our staffing than any other form of housing. So as we're going through this and we're being thoughtful about how do marry up development of our infrastructure along with housing, we need to be very thoughtful about how those things are come into play against each other and what that does to our current residents and current taxpayers. Like I said, I was ranty today, so welcome to have more conversation about that. Again, this has been a lot of research and a lot of work that has made me very confident in that statement there. But that's all I got for now. Thank you.
Perfect discussion, thank you. Any other comments, Councilman Campos?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Maloney, you bring up a good point. There was a news article, I saw something, or there was a blurb about a Reddit post where taxpayers recently got their their property assessed and are now in a position where their evaluations are so high they are worried that they can't pay their property taxes. And what a crazy problem to have. You would think that you would want your property value to go up, but they went up so astronomically high so quickly that people have been unprepared to do so. And you bring up a valid point, that something we've kind of skirted over as council members and Councilman Roach and I on Planning Commission, is that, we as community leaders need to look at the viability of increasing our housing plan for large high density family. We need more apartments. We need more options for people to come in. It's law of supply and demand. The more we have, the lower the prices will go. So the other side of that is, I think, something that you and Councilman Serrano have touched on is there's the problem is Tri-Cities is a really good place to live. And unfortunately, there's a way that you can look at it, because it's a great topic. It begs the question, devil's advocate, how do we dissuade people from moving here? And if we want to be strategic with our growth for housing, we have to be strategic with our growth for commercial use as well. And that includes, I'd say, I'm feeling Director Worley's going to wince, but like our processors, right? The more processors we bring in, the more good jobs we have, the more people that want to come in and live here. So I think it's you guys touched on it really good, and it kind of opens up that Pandora's box, is really looking at if we can push back, what does a pushback look like? And I think that it's not just from one angle. We should look at it from several. So thank you.
Thank you for your information. That does make sense. And yes, the Tri-Cities Pasco itself being, if I'm not mistaken, Chief Roski, was it mentioned, we're still top 3 safest city?
Not sure what this current year is, but yes, we had been in 2021.
And so, thank you for that clarification. But, it does attract families. And Director Gonzalez, you mentioned the need for median housing, correct? For those individuals that work in the city at schools. So medium housing is something that we definitely need to focus on, and how do we do that? So something we've always said, several of us have said, building up might be the solution. So looking forward to hearing a little bit more about the plans as they develop, and not only potentially slowing down the fast growth, but how do you manage it, right? You have another comment?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Maloney?
Sorry, this is my last meeting, so I gotta take a second bite at this apple. I did want to point out, when we did implement a school impact fee, one of the things that we saw is an increase in development in the county, which say Road 68 as a for instance. And what we saw was that because of the county development and the lack of impact fees there, they're still driving through our city. They're still using our infrastructure. And they're just not paying the same taxes and fees to maintain and implement it. So we need to be very thoughtful and cautious about how we work with the county to ensure that people aren't going to have the same burden on our taxpayers without paying those taxes. I think with our very large annexation out to the north and northwest, I think that becomes quite a long drive where it wasn't quite so long before. But just as just one more thing I wanted to add was just that the picture is multifaceted, and that's why it's so important that we have something like a housing action plan to help guide us through that and understand and really detailed implications of that. So what the work that Jacob is doing is really important. Jacob and his team is really important, and we should be very thoughtful before we reject any of the premises that which Jacob brings to us. Thank you.
Any further questions, comments, discussion? Councilman Campos.
Just wanted to reiterate, and to Chief Roski, what I said was, we just give Benton County one more month and they'll slip up and we'll definitely keep moving forward.
I don't want to spike the football yet, but so far crime is trending down for us this year, but we're still a few more months away before we have the actual calculation, so.
Awesome. But on that note, I kind of wanted to also clarify, I think from my standpoint, I'm not in favor of slowing down growth, but I am in favor of hoping that staff takes that into account and includes that in part of their plan. What could it look like? I would like to know the answer to that option, and some of that feedback that we're getting is what could that look like? How are we going to implement in a plan? It's a very intriguing question, and it's worthwhile to try to get some answers. Again, it's not a direction of mine to say that we should, because I believe there's some give and take. With growth, you have some take, and with slowdown, you have some take. So, and then on top of that, to the medium inside house. I mean, I've a little bit of a late bloomer, but from a personal standpoint, I definitely, and this is available on the PDC, but I clear quite a bit. And if I were to apply, my credit score is really good too. If I were to apply for a home loan, I couldn't afford it as a single income house. And it's crazy because 5 years ago, oh my gosh, if I jumped on, I'd be living where David's at. I'd be living, I'd be next door neighbors. But like I said, a little bit of a late bloomer. I'm in a weird spot, and I think that's probably likely for a lot of people in my situation, that we're ready to maybe move into newer homes, and inventory is at a point where it's like, man, what can we afford?
Right.
So, anyways, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, item number 6, miscellaneous council discussion. Are there any? Well, actually, before anyone starts, I do have a question, and I wanted to mention it here at miscellaneous council discussion. October 2nd will be a very busy day with interviews. Are you all open to coming in an hour early for a council meeting? Okay, 1 yes, 2 yes. 3 yes. 4 yes.
Do you need a motion to make that change?
Do we need a motion?
So this is where it becomes obvious that we don't have rules that are in our code, and but the way it's currently drafted, our code makes it clear that we start at 7 o'clock for regular meetings. So a motion would be the formal way to adopt that. I think the city manager could also do it based on kind of the wishes of council, but we'd still need to notice it as a special meeting because it'll be earlier.
Okay.
So I'd prefer a motion. Sorry, I didn't mean to not answer your question.
Let's get a motion going then. Do you want to?
Thank you for the answer, Mr. Ferguson. I make a motion to start the council meeting on Monday, October 2nd at 6 p.m.
There's a motion.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Brown. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
So there's 4, 5.
6.
Well, we're not counting you.
I know.
6. Oh, yes, you still get to vote
Sit
today.
down. Man.
You're still included. I am so sorry.
I believe the count is 6.
6 yes and 1 no. Thank you. All right, and I was actually hoping to end the meeting within an hour. That's not going to happen, Chief Roski. You're not going to be happy, but you get to walk away early. Executive session. There is a need for executive
Mayor.
session.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We have a lot of-
miscellaneous.
All right, I jumped right straight into
You're
it.
gonna take Craig's powers away from him and just.
You throw me that quickly.
We are still. I take that back. We are still in miscellaneous discussion.
Mayor and council, Jesse didn't hold any events this week, so I don't think we have any updates from staff on this particular evening. I don't know if he's just slacking this week or what, but
No, he's not slacking. I actually
No,
went
not
to
at all.
Farmer's market and he was there bright and early. He was tending to the booth. Yes.
everywhere.
Thank you, Jesse. Councilman Campos.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is more of a open-end question, I think, for Councilman Serrano. I don't think I'll be able to make my Good Roads meeting in October. I'm hoping that information was passed off to you from Ms. Clerk.
Was it?
So just be aware of that. That's all I've got.
Okay. Is it forthcoming or did I receive it?
You received it and you declined.
Oh, there we go. I probably, yeah. You can resend it and I can look back at it. Yeah, I'll probably decline it again.
As a note, some of the, I think, state reps will be there, and I believe it's a tour of Walla Walla. Dinner's on,
Okay, I think that's,
not something that I really feel
Well, I
like
mean-
being there.
go ahead and resend it. Having that additional context may change things, but I wouldn't bet my interest rate on it.
If you cannot make that, please let us know so we
Okay.
can find an alternate.
Sounds good.
Councilwoman Roach.
Thank you, Mayor. I was wanting to make some comments about Mayor Pro Tem Maloney. But if other people have some housekeeping items first they want to get through, I'll let them go first because I'm going to be a minute.
Councilman Brown.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I just had a quick thought. A couple months back, if we can all remember, a young man came and spoke to us about ADA accommodations. Do you all remember that?
Yeah.
It just came up. I'm not sure what to direct at. So, has there been a follow-up on that? Has been further conversation with that? Where are we going with that? I think that was a moment that was much needed for Pasco. So,
May I, Councilmember Irving or Brown, add something to that?
okay.
I think that there was recently a Pasco Parks and Rec survey that was also done that I also participated in. Do we have any results from that contribute to like ADA and accessibility? Do you have results back from that survey?
We'll have to go back and find the results from that. I am guessing those were actually rolled into the Parks Master Plan. However, one of the things that Director Rice had done when he took over as interim was extend the contract of work that MIG was doing for us. So I think the initial plan that council approved was great for a really high level analysis of where the Parks Department's going, especially planning for but rather specifically planning for things like ADA. I don't think it got that level of granularity in the report, but that's something that we are looking at with the expansion of that plan, so that we can kind of go park by park and look at what are our what is a basic layout for a park, especially new ones. What are the updates that we need to accommodate for things like playground equipment and things like that? So to try and answer the question on the fly, we're definitely looking at supplementing that report and making it a little bit more broad and obvious for those that are using it, so it's a little more user friendly.
Take it away, Councilwoman Roach.
All right, I'm just gonna read this instead of going extemporaneous, but it's your last council meeting, and I just wanted to say thank you for your service to this council and to this city. I've had the honor of serving on council with you since 2020, and when I think about your service to this community, the first thing that comes to mind is your dedication to a local nonprofit we all know that you and Emily have given your time and talent to, and that's the Boys and Girls Club. You both helped co-found the Taco Crawl, and while it benefited the B&G Club, the Boys and Girls Club, and helped parents like myself and my husband who are working and need good after school and before school care for children, you highlighted an asset of Pasco that had yet to be highlighted. And for that, I want to say thank you to you and Emily, and for those who've participated in that Taco Crawl multi-year event, generating for a good cause, but also helping local small business owners in a real way in Pasco, and generating regional attention to it. I think it aligns with who you've been with downtown business owners individually and as a collective, in helping them to get what they need as business owners to promote their business. And then your time on Pasco Facilities Board, which was, a big part of your life. And I can think back as far as 2011, when you started off by listening to the community. And what the community was saying back then, it was a grassroots local effort from people. It didn't start here at all, and that was that they wanted an aquatics facility. And you had the audacity to hear them and then keep promoting what they wanted, by going and lobbying Washington state legislators, by helping the previous mayor and council make sure that they also lobby and get that definition adopted as aquatics facility, because it was not part of the language of a public facilities district. That was a monumental effort, multi-year, to hear the people, to know what they want, and then to just set yourself on that path and stay on it until that was put on the ballot last year and voted and affirmed that yes, in fact, the people of Pasco did want that aquatics facility. And so I applaud you for that effort. That's a long time coming. And you've done your job diligently. I've seen you as a council member, go through that city budget. You've taught me a lot as part of the budget process, holding us to our council goals and helping set them and creating that as a North Star of, okay, how does the budget fit with our goals and how do we stay aligned with that? And are we making progress with that? That's what we're discussing tonight. We're talking about quality of life, housing and transportation plans, Parks and Rec master plans. It's like having a touchstone for leadership in the city, but also for the council, so that we have an organized way about with which we're spending our money and setting our goals and listening to the people of Pasco. And I think that you have that level of strategic thinking, that it's really hard when you get drawn into just the day-to-day with people, and the things that they ask you about, like fences and, like their pit bulls and removing bans like that, but to get out to the 30,000, 50,000 foot view and not forget about that too and what we're doing here. But most importantly, I want to acknowledge something that I think a lot of people don't realize, and that is that, this job is really tough and it can be really thankless at times. And you can leave this council, and I know you do, scratching your head going, well, that was unexpected. And then not be able to fall asleep because you're just thinking about what happened at council. And I know that you've had 3 very strong women who've supported you to give you the space to do what you believe in, which is service to your community. And so I have to thank them as well as part of that, to Emily and the girls, because I know for a fact that doing this job alone and not having someone to go home to and say, man, that was a doozy or that was hard, is really tough. Am I right? Mm-hmm. And so you have that support, and I'm grateful that you have that support, and I'm grateful that they see that this is a valid cause for you to be a part of for so long. So thank you for your service. Glad you're not moving out of Pasco. Glad you'll still be a resident here. And thanks for loving your city the way that you did.
Thank you. Thank you, Zara. Any other comments? And does anybody want to roast?
I
Craig?
prefer roast.
Councilman Campos first, and then I'll turn it over to you.
I'll be very succinct. Craig, the words I spoke the other night about your leadership and being grateful that you've been with us on council couldn't be more true. I think Councilwoman Roach has spoken for us on council with her kind words. Again, thank you so much for everything you do. I think, everyone else from the community who appreciates your service won't truly appreciate it like we do, because we've been able to walk in your shoes. We understand the work this takes, and you've shown your devotion to the city time and time again, and a lot of people outside of those of us on the dais won't recognize that. And I hope that in the future, if somebody ever does a public records request on your name, 20, 30 years from now, they'll be like, oh, God, this guy's got a lot of records. And that then counts into, he must have been very devoted. And again, I can't thank you enough, and look forward to seeing you in your next capacity, and look forward to spending time with you in public now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman Campos. David?
Thank you, Mayor, and it's kind of hard to go after Roach and Campos. They kind of said everything that we can't say about you, but I can say since I've known you since Leadership Tri-Cities, I know that you're devoted to the city. You love Pasco. I could tell that in your heart. I could tell that the way you handle the council when you've been mayor for, when Blanche isn't here, and you've been able to run the meeting. You just tell you're very detail oriented, and I really appreciate all the things you've tried to do for Pasco. Hopefully one of these days we'll get a lot of lighting in Pasco.
Right.
And we'll see that, the murals, maybe we can put a mural of you, I don't know, but
Please don't.
anyway, again, all the stuff that you've been basically trying to push for. I know some of them came through, some of them haven't, but hopefully one of these days you'll see that. And again, I just want to say thank you as your neighbor and as your friend, that for all that you've done for Pasco. It means a lot to us. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go next. Craig, I've not known you for a very long time. Just when we started council, actually. Maybe met with you a couple times during campaigning, but I've come to learn that you are very, very dedicated to advocating for the community. You walked the streets, you knocked on doors, you took people's insight, and you brought it here, presented it here, and you advocated for those individuals. I appreciate that of you. Appreciate that you're always prepared to ask the questions that I probably didn't even think about. You and I have made a great team. I appreciate that Emily and your beautiful girls have supported you this whole trajectory. Thank you so much, Craig, for everything you've done, and thank you for being my sidekick, my pal, my go-to person. I appreciate you very much. And yes, Councilwoman Roach took all the words we were probably thinking and wanting to say. She definitely did her homework, but she's known you for a very long time. And so all I can say is thank you, Craig, and I'll still be reaching out to you, so I won't miss you very much. But we'll be in touch. I appreciate it very much. And no other comments from any other council members?
Just a quick one. I already gave you mine, so we're not bringing out the tissue tonight. I'll just speak just to say, because it is the last night, that in all your endeavors that are going to come your way, I think you're going to be highly blessed. You've been a great person. You've been a great council member. You're on your way to do some great things, and I think your family's going to be very proud of you. So I'm proud of you already. You've given me a lot of insight. Job up here. I don't know what they're thinking out there, but this is a tough job, and you've really you've coached well, you've commented well, you've mentored well. So we appreciate you. Left legacy. You should be proud of that. And again, God bless you, and we wish you well.
Like Irby and I figured we had one goodbye, and I tell my kids, like, you give one hug and then leave, right? Like, walk on freaking tarmac and get on the plane. Apparently the plane's still in port, so appreciate the effort that you've put into this. I mean, it's a lot, and you've done it to your fullest. And just like Mr. Brown said, I know you'll be successful. It's been an interesting evolution of the days pre-election when we were talking back at DOE.
Lunch breaks.
Yes, on a permitted time. It was about community involvement and how we could better the community, not partisan politics. And it really was about that. It was about what the community could benefit and the vision that we share and the visions where we differ and where we could come in the middle. So it's been an interesting 6 years, 7 years now. I mean, wow, it's hard to think back. And you know, just appreciate your service. And like I said, and like Irving said, I know you'll be successful in whatever the future holds and what the present holds. So best of luck. And again, thank your special ladies for their giving their time of you.
Keep the lights off. I'm done with y'all.
There you go.
Yeah, I didn't. Thank you all so much. It's very uncomfortable to be the recipient of these comments and praise because this has never been about me. This position has never been about me. I've never wanted it to be about Craig. I'm serving my community. That's it. So it's hard to hear positive comments. Thank you all for your comments. I've worked very hard, but it's never been about me. City council is like a relay race. You know, you sprint as long as you can, as hard as you can, and then sometimes it's time to stop sprinting and hand that baton off to someone else. And I'm grateful that I get to choose my time when I'm handing off that baton, and this is now. So thank you so much for being such kind and professional coworkers, doing the hardest job I've ever done, with the least pay relative to the work I do. So I wish whoever's going to be my successor the best. I have such strong hopes that they will be able to live up to this community's expectations. Again, none of this is done alone. There's none of us are an island. There's not a single council member up here that can make a single decision for the city by themselves. And none of us represent only ourselves when we're sitting up here. We are representing the community. And we're trying to do the best we can for them. That is our job and that is our role. And as long as we take that seriously and represent that goal and that aspiration as well as we can, we make for good council members. So I'm not going anywhere, as Councilmember Roach said. I'm staying in this community. I have no intention of leaving Pasco. When my wife and I think about our home, we talk about our forever home, not a next upgrade. And maybe it's because we won't be able to afford the next house. That's possible. I don't know, but we plan on staying in this community and being part of this community for a very long time. So I plan on still being a resource, just not near as frequently as I am right now. So. You know, when we talk about how long it's been, even though it's only been 6 years approximately of elected service here, we've had 100% turnover in executive team. Right, for perspective, not a single person is sitting in the same seat they were when the four of us were elected as part of that council. And isn't that wild? I mean, when you talk about leadership and we talk about what it means to set goals, with a moving target as a board of directors for this municipality, this city that is ours, it means a lot to have strong leadership who has a long-term vision and can set it so that when new staff members are joining and they're trying to figure out where do they want to work, they're in high demand, right? We have very talented people who could go anywhere. Why Pasco? Why be here in this city? And part of the reason why people want to choose this city to work is because we have vision, we have consistency, we value our employees, we value our community in a way that is functional and supportive and effective. And I can only hope that is going to be the case for Pasco long into the future. And if it's not, I promise you, I will be at that podium telling you so. So, not all you, but future councils. So, anyways, I'll leave it there. This is my goodbye for sitting at this seat. So, thank you all very much.
Wow. Well, I don't know what else to say. I
Nothing
can't
to
even
do.
follow with that. But I was actually trying to strip his powers earlier by just moving on to executive session. I do want to say that we joke, we make fun of each other because we've become a great team. We allow that of ourselves. We're human. We're human, and we've become a very close team, and we appreciate you very much, Craig, all of you, Chief. I know that sometimes I just, and people don't know that we're close to where we can jest in such a way. And so, just want to say I appreciate you all. And thank you for taking our jokes, my jokes. So we will move on. We will move on to our executive session. There is a need for executive session to discuss the qualifications of an applicant candidate for appointment to elective office per RCW 42.30.110(1)H for 10 minutes. It is 8:25. I'm going to add 5-minute break real quick and to return at 8:45. 40. Thank you. Yes. It is 8:40, and we do have a need to extend our executive session for another 10 minutes to return at 8:50. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for waiting this long. It is 8:52. There are no other items on our agenda. We've concluded our executive session. With that, we will see you next Monday. Have a great evening. Mayor Pro Tem Maloney, it was great to serve with you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.